In this video, I want to walk you through the step-by-step process that we take with our clients to get them and help them lose 20 plus pounds in their first 6 months of one-on-one coaching. So this is a framework that I've been using for a long, long time, and I have refined over the years of coaching. So even 5 years ago, when I first kind of went all in on my business, I was doing this in a similar way. And every single year, as time goes on, as new research comes out, as I learn just how the human body works and how clients work, just working with so many individuals over the past years, I've refined this over time to be even better, to where you get the best result and learn how to maintain it along the way while still being able to, live your life along the way too. So just actually got off of a one-on-one phone call this afternoon with one of our newer clients, Tina, and we just mapped out her roadmap for the next 6 months too, and mapped out how she's probably going to be down roughly 15 pounds ish of fat in the next 5 to 6 months based on vacations she has planned and this and that. And she's starting at a pretty low body weight already, and she's pretty lean already. So 15 pounds on her is quite a lot. So let's dive into what this would look like. Let's say you do actually apply for this giveaway and you do win one of these scholarship or discounted spots and you do start coaching. What will this look like? Now, obviously, what I go over in here is going to be a broad overview and it's going to be very general. And we tailor this roadmap and this approach to each individual. So I'm going to go over certain phases that we take clients through that end up helping them to be super successful and give approximate lengths of these phases. And just note that these phases are sometimes a little bit longer for some clients, sometimes a little bit shorter for other clients. So it's all personalized and customized within this broader framework that we generally follow. So one of the biggest mistakes that people make when it comes to wanting to lose weight long term, let's say you want to lose 20 plus pounds over the next 6 months, is they will just automatically jump into a fat loss phase or a diet phase and be like, okay, now I'm going to slash my calories. I'm going to eat super low calories, high protein, exercise a lot, and, just hopefully lose weight, right? And they're like, okay, let me just eat clean for the next 5 to 6 months and stay disciplined. And if I do that for 5 to 6 months, I'm going to be down this weight. That is not how you want to approach this. And a lot of people do that coming from a place where they previously have yo-yo dieted for a significant period of time too. They've tried different diets, keto, low carb, intermittent fasting. Maybe they've tracked their calories, but they've tried to eat 1,000 calories per day. They've come from this, and you might be feeling like, okay, this is definitely me. You've come from this position where you want to start losing weight, and you previously have had so many failed diet attempts up to this point where you've kind of ran your body into the ground in a sense, where your hunger is just always high, your cravings are always super high, your energy levels are super low, your metabolism is a little bit slowed down, and your body just isn't really in a state where it's going to respond to fat loss the best. Now, will you be able to lose body fat if you jump into an extreme dieting phase, even with your body in this position? You will still lose some, but you're going to crash and burn quicker and you're not going to be able to get to your long-term goal. And this is why so many of you are constantly cycling through periods where you lose 10 pounds, gain it back, lose 10 pounds, gain it back, is because you aren't doing this first phase, which is called the priming phase or body recomposition phase, I like to call it, which is the first phase we take all of our clients through. So when a client first gets started, what we do is we get an idea of what your current eating habits are like, your current food intake is like. Because we want to see, okay, do you typically overeat? Do you typically undereat? Are there certain things that maybe we're getting too much of or too little of? What are your habits? Like, are some days at 800 calories and then other days as high as 3,000? Like, where do those fluctuations happen? And that tells us a few things. Obviously, it tells us what are the easiest things for us to fix and work on initially to start seeing progress. But also it tells us what your body might be adapted to and why you're maybe experiencing these huge cravings, these big fluctuations in hunger, super low energy levels, maybe poor sleep, poor digestion. And it gives us a picture of just where your body's currently at. From there, after we find, okay, what your current habits are like, and especially how many calories your body's used to eating, is we will start, like I said, what's called this priming or body recomposition phase. And the purpose of this phase is multiple fold, I guess you could say. Number one purpose of this phase is for us to get some initial muscle gain and what's called body recomposition, fat loss and muscle gain happening at the same time. So we're going to start getting consistent with our lifting routine. We're going to start getting consistent with hitting a simple step goal. and we're going to get consistent with eating a little bit more protein. Most likely, most clients are under eating protein. So we're going to work on bumping that up a little bit. So we're able to actually build some muscle with the workouts we're doing and see some increased muscle tone along with that. Another purpose of this priming phase, which is one of the biggest ones, is to increase your calories up to where your approximate maintenance calories should be if your body was functioning the way we want it to. So, like I said, so many of you are likely starting your dieting or your fat loss phases in a spot where your metabolism slow down, your energy level is low, your recovery is poor between workouts. And we want to get to a spot where your metabolism is thriving, your body is thriving, you're feeling stronger every week with your workouts, you're seeing increases in your strength, and you're seeing some good body composition change happening. So how we do that is we will build your calories up slowly to your approximate ideal maintenance calorie marker, the ideally how many calories your body would really thrive on per day. So a lot of times what this looks like is a 3 to 5 week phase or period. Sometimes it's as short as 3 weeks, sometimes even 2 weeks, and some clients, and sometimes it's as long as 5. But I would say 3 to 5 is a good average length of, okay, that's usually when we're in this priming phase. Now in this priming phase, a lot of times people think, oh, it's not a fat loss phase, I'm not going to see any body composition change. But honestly, most people end up actually losing a little bit of weight on the scale during this priming phase, a few pounds, and they definitely end up seeing some fat loss where if you look at their pictures, they're like, wow, it looks like I've lost 5 to 10 pounds already based off of just the increase in muscle definition, the changes in their body shape that they see during this phase. So don't think that because you're not in an intentional fat loss phase during this period, that means like you're not going to notice changes. A lot of times your clothes start fitting better, all of those things too. But we're basically training the body to just really thrive with eating more food, training your body to tolerate a little bit more food, training your body to use that food for your performance in your workouts and for recovery. So your body ends up just being built instead of torn down so much. And then another thing that this priming phase is really good at doing is getting your metabolism adapted to eating a little bit more food. So that way, when we go into a fat loss phase, we can lose body fat eating a little bit more than what we probably would have had to have eaten if we didn't do this priming phase to begin with. Now, is this going to be like a crazy big difference of multiple hundreds of calories? Probably not. But I'll say this time and time again. When you do the priming phase, you probably will be able to lose body fat eating 100, maybe a little bit more than that calories per day than what you would if you didn't do the priming phase. And at least you will feel better along the way. Maybe you lose the same amount of body fat doing the priming phase versus not. But if you didn't do the priming phase, your hunger would be super high, your energy levels would be super low. You wouldn't have built that initial muscle that's going to help with the fat loss process as much. Whereas doing that priming phase first, you feel better in that fat loss phase and don't feel so run down, which leads to you not burning out, which leads to us actually being able to reach our end goal and maintain it and not rebound after. So that priming phase is so important because so many people start their fat loss phases, their diet phases, just in a spot where their body's just run down and they don't know how to actually eat and fuel their body appropriately. So that's the priming phase, usually 3 to 5 weeks. Now, after we go through that phase, we'll start an intentional fat loss phase. And this is where also people go wrong, is they might have, let's say, or they go wrong in a couple of places. One is they decide, okay, I'm going into fat loss phase. ChatGPT says I need to eat 1,500 calories per day, which I wouldn't rely on ChatGPT for all of your answers, especially with this, by the way, because a calculator isn't going to be the perfect indicator of how much you should eat. But they'll type that in and be like, okay, I need to eat 1,500 calories to lose weight. So I'm just going to do that 7 days a week, every week for the foreseeable future, unless I have a quote unquote cheat day that's just untracked and or cheat weekend that turns into a binge. But I'm just going to do that for the foreseeable future until I lose this 20 pounds and reach my end goal. And that runs into a couple of issues. One is that it doesn't provide enough flexibility in the middle of the week because you're eating this lower calorie amount every single day. And what happens if you have a birthday celebration, if you have a weekend out of town, or if you have some other meal you want to enjoy, like maybe an anniversary or whatever it may be? It doesn't provide that flexibility because including those things in your fat loss range of calories or the lower calories, you're probably aiming for if you use this calculator, it's going to be impossible to hit, right? Fitting a dinner out with 1,500 calories is going to be very difficult. Not impossible, but very difficult where you're going to have to maybe starve yourself the whole rest of the day, which isn't sustainable. So people make the mistake of eating that lower calorie amount every single day of the week. Another mistake people make in their fat loss phases or diet phases is they will try to eat this amount for multiple weeks and multiple months on end until they reach their goal. So they're like, hey, I want to lose 20 pounds. I'm just going to eat this low calorie amount for 5, 6 months straight until I get there, which that runs your body into the ground too, because doing that over and over and over for 5 to 6 months it's going to build up in you and it's going to lead to you feeling burnt out. Even if the calorie goal you're aiming for is theoretically a sustainable calorie goal, to eat in a calorie deficit, less calories than what you burn, which is obviously needed to lose body fat, to do that for 5 to 6 months straight is just unsustainable no matter how big or small that deficit really is for most people. So this is how we fight those two things or combat those two things with our coaching and the way we do fat loss phases. So number one is we don't have clients actually eat the same amount all 7 days of the week when they're in a fat loss phase. We instead have 1 or 2 days of the week that are what we call our quote unquote maintenance days. So these are days that theoretically are closer to your maintenance level of calories, the amount of calories that your body roughly burns per day. And then we'll have 5 to 6 days that are lower in calories that are kind of your fat loss days. And these are the days that we're really actively losing body fat. For somebody, this is a hypothetical example. It's not saying you should follow this because this could possibly run your body into the ground, right? It's all customized and personal. An example of this would be in a fat loss phase, somebody might have a calorie range of 1,500 to 1,650 on their 5 to 6 kind of fat loss days. And then their maintenance days might be 2,000 to 2,150. And that's 1 to 2 days per week. And what that does is a couple of things. One, it allows you to have 1 or 2 days if needed at a slightly higher calorie mark to where you can easily fit those anniversary celebrations into there, birthday celebration. You could fit, a slice of birthday cake, somewhere. You can fit these little treats that, you want to incorporate within your life, within your weekly fat loss phase. So you learn how to add them in your diet or incorporate them in your diet while eating close to your maintenance level of calories. So we're not having these to be like cheat days or binge days where we're way overeating on calories. We're still having them within our maintenance, but we're learning how to implement them in moderation without overspilling. And we're allowing ourselves to eat those things during the fat loss process. So you don't get as burnout. So it's not like, hey, I need to cut out pizza for 5 months straight and then I'll start eating pizza. Because if you do that, then on month 5, once you lose the weight, then you're just going to completely binge on pizza and that's not going to be a good time. So this allows you to have those flexibility or the flexibility of those types of foods within your fat loss phases, which is really helpful for just following the plan, right? And making it enjoyable and making it, fit within your life more. Another benefit of this is the physiological benefit. So the physical benefit of just eating a little bit more food, eating close to your maintenance a couple of days per week. If you are always eating at your fat loss range of calories for 7 days a week, multiple weeks straight, your hunger is going to start to rise. Your energy levels are going to dip. Your performance in your workouts is just not going to feel great because your glycogen, your carbohydrate stores are slowly dwindling over time. And that causes a couple of issues. One, just obviously being underfueled can increase your risk of injury. But that extra hunger that builds up from that, multiple days eating in your fat loss range of calories straight, leads to those like binge episodes that a lot of people end up having where and you might, relate to this too. You stick to your fat loss range of calories, your diet for 2 weeks straight. And then on day 15, you just can't help it and eat 4,000 calories or just don't even track them at all. But, you eat a whole tub of Ben& Jerry's or whatever it may be. These maintenance days we have in there that are planned, are part of the plan. And I always tell clients, at least have one. You don't necessarily have to have 2 maintenance days. If you're in a groove, hitting your fat loss range of calories, feeling good, you don't need to have 2 necessarily, but at least have one of those because it helps to prevent that hunger just from constantly building up, because that one maintenance day kind of gives your body a break and saying, hey, like, I actually am getting enough fuel that I need for this day. So my hunger doesn't need to be as high. And it also can help workout performance too for the next, few days as well, getting that boost in calories. So that's one way we combat that on a weekly basis. On a monthly kind of basis, as far as like long term, right? Let's say, you're implementing those maintenance days a couple of days throughout the week. Can I stay in a fat loss phase for then 5 months straight then and get to my goal? Probably not still, because even though we're taking those 1 or 2 maintenance days, doing that still for 5 months straight will probably burn your body or run your body into the ground too. So another strategy that we use are what I call diet breaks or reset phases. And we use these every 2 to 3 ish months, depending on the client, or every 8 to 12 weeks. And these are planned periods where we will purposely increase calories every day of the week, actually, up to around your maintenance level of calories. So basically, what we do is we do a fat loss phase for 8 to 12 weeks, maybe 2 to 3 months, followed by usually a 2 week diet break. Or sometimes we do 3 week diet breaks. Sometimes here and there we'll do 1 week, depending on how things go. But usually they're 2 week diet breaks. So we'll do a 2 week diet break, bump calories up to maintenance. And we don't jump all the way up to maintenance in the diet break. The very first week, we actually do it in chunks. So we'll do a small jump the first week of the diet break, another week the second, or another jump the second week of the diet break. So your body's digestive system can kind of get a little bit used to the extra calories on a daily basis too. And that basically serves the same purpose as those 1 or 2 maintenance days do, but just to a heightened degree. So those 1 or 2 day maintenance days are just there to kind of like throughout the fat loss phase weeks are there to bring your hunger down, bring your energy level up, bring the mental fatigue down a little bit of, hitting the fat loss range of calories to get you kind of through the next, 5 to 6 days before your next maintenance day. But after you've done that for 8 to 12 weeks, you need a longer period around maintenance to really allow your body to kind of settle into its new settling point. Because at that point, you're age 12 weeks into a fat loss phase. As long as we're following the plan and hitting, our goals on a daily basis, you should be down roughly maybe 10-ish pounds at that point. And this is a new territory for your body, right? Your body's lost 10 pounds of body fat. So that 2 week diet break kind of allows your body to settle in to its new set point in a sense, while eating more food, eating closer to maintenance. And it allows you to learn how to maintain your weight along the way. Because one big problem or issue that people have with weight loss is they'll lose 30, 40 pounds just like through pure grit and force and just killing themselves in the gym and just restricting their food. But then once they get to that end destination, they're like, I have no idea how to actually eat like a real human being and eat a little bit more food and maintain this weight. But the beauty of doing diet breaks every 2 to 3 months is you're practicing maintenance every 10 to 15 ish pounds that you lose. So instead of losing 40 pounds and then all of a sudden now you got to learn how to maintain it, you lose 10 to 12 pounds, learn how to maintain it for 2 weeks at a time, 2 chunks, while it's not such a big difference between, your starting point and, where you are now. You learn how to maintain it for a couple of weeks, go into another fat loss phase for a few months, lose another 10 to 12 pounds, learn how to maintain it for a few weeks, and then go into another fat loss phase and so on. So you're learning how to maintain it in 10 to 15 pound chunks, which makes maintaining your weight just a much less daunting process when you're fully done. Because if you learn how to maintain your weight every 10 to 12 pound chunks that you take, that you lose, then when you lose that 40 pounds, you're like, well, it's not that overwhelming and daunting because I did really well maintaining my 30-pound loss and I did really well maintaining my 20-pound loss and my 10-pound loss, those other diet breaks before. And then also physiologically, it just helps to, if your metabolism has slowed down a little bit as you've lost weight from just the reduction in calories just adding up over time, it helps to boost that metabolism up a little bit from eating a little bit more calories for, a couple of weeks at a time. And it makes your body respond a lot better to that next fat loss phase you do. So if you were to, let's say, be in a fat loss phase for 20 weeks straight on, let's say, week 11, right? Kind of halfway through, you might lose 3/4 of a pound of body fat that week because your metabolism has slowed down a little bit and you maybe aren't losing 1 pound on average per week anymore. But if you are in a fat loss phase for 8 to 10 weeks, do a 2 week diet break, and then go into another fat loss phase for 8 to 10 weeks, well, that 11th week of being in a fat loss phase after a diet break, at 11th week, you might actually lose that 1 pound of fat on that week now because your metabolism is just a little bit elevated. Metabolism, I'm using this as a very broad term. And what I mean is just like the effects of metabolic adaptation, which would be like a topic for an entirely new episode or podcast of just things like NEAT, non-exercise activity slowing down, things like that. But I've seen it time and time again when you come out of a diet break after you've been in it for a few weeks, that next fat loss phase, like things start to pick up even more compared to if you would have stayed in that fat loss phase for that longer duration of time. So every 8 to 12 weeks, on average, let's say 10 weeks per person, we'll do that diet break. And then after you go through this whole entire process, or let me actually back up a little bit. So, how much weight can you expect to lose, or how much body fat, I should say, can you expect to lose through this process then? Well, in the priming phase, like I said, that phase is not built towards like seeing purposeful fat loss or weight loss on the scale. It's built towards building our habits, building our muscle mass up, building our metabolism up. But a lot of people do see fat loss in that phase. And sometimes, like quite a bit. I've had so many people lose 5 to 10 pounds in that 3 to 5 week period in their priming phase. But let's say on average, you might lose, let's say 3 pounds in that 3 to 5 week fat loss phase, which is pretty significant because if you're just starting out with this, if you lose 3 pounds on the scale, you probably actually lost more body fat than that. You probably lost closer to 5 pounds of body fat and maybe gained 1 or 2 pounds of muscle potentially, depending on how new you are to lifting weights and resistance training. You might lose, let's say, 3 pounds in that first priming phase, 3 to 5 weeks. Now, when you go into a fat loss phase, how much weight would you expect to lose in your fat loss phase? On average, 1 pound per week is a good sustainable pace for most people. Some people can lose it a little bit quicker. Some people can lose it a little bit slower. And that really will depend on your starting point, how lean you currently are. The leaner you are and the smaller you weigh right now, like if you're a 150-pound person wanting to lose 20 pounds versus a 300-pound person wanting to lose 20 pounds, well, the 300-pound person is going to be able to lose a little bit quicker because losing a pound is a smaller percentage of their starting weight, if that makes sense. So it's going to be dependent on that. But on average, 1 pound per week is really realistic in your fat loss phase. So you do, let's say, a 10-week fat loss phase. That's going to be roughly 10-ish pounds you lose. And then you go through a diet break, right? For 2 weeks. And theoretically, hypothetically, ideally, we're maintaining basically all of our weight during that diet break, that maintenance phase. And so, you come out of that diet break, that 2 week period, the same weight, which is a win, right? A lot of people might hear that and be like, well, I still want to lose weight during that period. Well, the purpose of that isn't necessarily weight loss. It's to make your body more efficient with weight loss and fat loss in our next fat loss phase. And it's better. It's more of an investment. That time is an investment towards long-term success. So you do that for 2 weeks and then you go into another 10-week fat loss phase. Let's say you lose another, 1-ish pounds per week. So if you add all of that up, losing 3 pounds in your priming phase, losing 10 pounds in your first fat loss phase, maintaining that in your diet break, then losing another 10 pounds in your second fat loss phase. And we're looking at roughly maybe anywhere from 25 to 28 weeks in duration, like these phases, how they line up. You could be down roughly 23-ish pounds in the next 28 weeks following that framework. And we see it time and time again with our clients. And like I said, some clients, it's a little bit smaller, like the client that I just got off of the call with this morning. She's just a little bit lighter. She already is pretty lean. So for her, I talked with her and I was like, losing 3/4 of a pound of body fat per week is probably more realistic for you. So her timeline in the next 6 months, she'll probably be down maybe 15-ish pounds of body fat, give or take, while building some muscle along the way too. So her timeline looks a little bit different. Other clients, based on where their starting point is, they actually lose, 30 pounds in their first 6 months, but 20-ish pounds in the first 6 months of straight body fat too. Like, I'm not just talking about weight on the scale. You can lose a lot faster in terms of weight on the scale by losing a lot of water and losing a lot of muscle mass and just crash dieting. But I'm talking about pure fat loss, where you walk away after 6 months knowing those 20 pounds on the scale down is pure fat loss, while also honestly probably building some muscle at the same time. So the actual fat loss is probably even a little bit greater. But like, that's the framework. And what we do with clients is we get on a phone call when they first sign up after their first week, and we map out this roadmap for them of, okay, here's how long your priming phase is probably going to be based on your starting point. Here's how long your fat loss phases are going to be, your diet breaks, and so on. And some clients, it looks different. Like, we get on the call and they have maybe a vacation planned at this time period versus that time period. So maybe we'll do the fat loss phase a little bit shorter or a little bit longer based on that, right? Because we don't want to plan a fat loss phase for a week of vacation. We want that to be a diet break week or a maintenance week, right? So we tailor all of this to the client's schedule and like what they have going on in life. Also, obviously, this roadmap that we map out isn't set in stone either. Like, if something changes based on how your body's responding or some kind of life event, we might do the fat loss phase shorter or longer, or do a maintenance phase longer, or a diet break longer, whatever it may be. Those things happen too. But this is just the broad overall framework. And then once we go through enough fat loss phases and diet breaks to basically get to your end goal, then that's a different conversation of transition to long-term maintenance and building calories and building your metabolism back up and learning how to maintain that weight long term while also not tracking your food as much and being a little bit more flexible with that. Some clients, once they reach their end goal of body fat loss, like they're like, hey, I want to like go deeper and explore, okay, how do I build muscle in certain areas and just continue to improve my body composition and strength. So, we'll go down that rabbit hole too. But that's essentially what the first 6 months, will look like. And it's like there's obviously so many other things involved through that process, right? How many calories should this person eat? How many grams of protein? What adjustments are we going to make? Monitoring your progress week to week to see if an adjustment even needs to be made. Monitoring how well we're following the plan, right? Maybe we just need to follow the plan better versus actually make an adjustment when it's not needed. Monitoring, hey, your progress pictures are looking really lean and the weight of the scale is a little bit stagnant, but like there's definitely fat loss still happening. Let's keep things the same. Like sometimes that happens too. So, and there's so many other things that go into it too with strategies and tactics of how do I hit my protein? How do I structure my meals? How many meals a day should I have? How often should I, space out my meals and this and that? And I find that so many people, and probably yourself, are focusing so much on these little tactics. And you think these little tactics are the solution to losing weight, right? Like asking somebody, okay, like what's your favorite protein source? Or how do I eat more protein? Or what workouts to do or this and that. That stuff is important, but those are, like I said, just little tactics that help you to get to that, overarching goal. But if you don't have this strategy of laying out these phases and know how to structure them and know how to look for little red flags and alarms of, hey, it's time to go into a diet break, or hey, it's time and you're ready to start a fat loss phase, or maybe you're not ready to start another fat loss phase because our body still hasn't built or reduced that hunger enough in our diet break. So maybe we have to do a longer diet break. Learning how to be objective with the process too, where, I've had clients who have wanted to jump into a fat loss phase again, but they have like a trip in a week, or maybe they hurt their foot so they aren't able to walk as much. I'm like, it doesn't really make sense for us to do a fat loss phase now. Let's hold off on that for a couple of weeks, practice a couple more weeks of maintenance and maintaining the weight that we've lost up to this point. So figuring out these phases on your own is so difficult in that aspect. And not even to mention like the emotional support that's needed with all this too. Like, I mean, our clients have lives. They have loved ones who are sick. They have stresses when it comes to their job. They have responsibilities with kids. They have this and that. And having someone in your corner to talk you off the ledge and to talk you through those things and to, help open your eyes to, hey, like you need to give yourself some more slack, give yourself some grace. Like you are not failing at this. You are doing fine. It's okay if things aren't perfect. And then also someone in your corner to tell you, hey, like we haven't really been executing for, a few weeks now in a row. Like if we want to start seeing progress, we have to start executing more. And that's just a reality. Like having somebody to be that voice of reason in your head is really invaluable. I think if you're listening to this and you've been focusing so much on tactics, those little things of, okay, how many calories do I eat right now to lose weight? How many grams of protein do I need right now? What workout should I do today? But you don't have this overarching vision of what the next 6 months will look like, of phases and how to implement that and how to set yourself up for long-term success. Like you need to apply for the giveaway. You need to apply for coaching in that aspect because these tactics will only get you so far. And the tactics are the reason why you probably have lost the weight and gained it right back so many times because you've lacked the overall arching strategy that goes along with it, along with obviously, the one-on-one coaching support to get through that as well, and to take the guesswork out of everything. So hopefully this was eye-opening and helpful of, how we help our clients lose 20 plus pounds and how, it's a pretty, consistent process, right? And some people lose less than that in 6 months, and that's okay. Like everybody loses at their own pace based on how consistent they are willing to and able to be. But It's perfectly possible, and we see it time and time again. Clients losing 20 pounds in their first 6 months using this process, or maybe it looks like 20 pounds in their first year, but we still use the same process and just flow through it with, however much consistency, you were able to put into it. But it works and it helps you to maintain it long term. And you'll be surprised at how good you feel when you follow this kind of process, and also how good you feel mentally knowing that, hey, like I don't have to try to figure this out and stress about this on my own anymore. Yeah, hopefully this is helpful. If you need the link to register and enter for the giveaway, me below in the comments of the slide. And remember, applications do close this Sunday at midnight. So make sure you get those in ASAP.